Hi, welcome to an age where instead of going in person to an office to interview for a job, now most of the communication that you'll have, including all of your interviews, is likely to happen via video conference instead. My name's Kristen Reed. I am an executive vice president at the Mixtech Group. We are an executive search firm that specializes in food and ag. And so I spend my whole day interviewing candidates for positions. And while we have been doing video interviews for a very long time, most of our clients are just starting this process for the first time. They're used to meeting with people in person. And most of the candidates that we've worked with also have been used to meeting in person. So today I want to give you some tips and suggestions for video interviewing based on some problems that I've had candidates have over the years, anywhere from entry-level people all the way to CEO candidates. And hopefully you can learn from some of their mistakes. I think the first thing to talk about that's important is that in many ways, a video interview is not any different than an in-person interview. You should still see it as formally as you would see an in-person meeting. So that means you're going to be dressed appropriately. You should do all of the research and preparation you would have done if the meeting had been face-to-face. I highly recommend researching the company so that you can speak knowledgeably in the conversation about any new press releases that they have, their value system, their website, what they do, so you don't get tripped up on any of the things you probably should have been aware of. Know what the position is, ask for a job description in advance so that if you have any questions about it, you can ask those in the meeting. I also recommend preparing yourself for any interview, video or in person. And that means researching, Google common interview questions and have a good understanding of how you would answer those if they were going to be asked of you. The most common interview question is tell me about yourself. It's how almost every interviewer opens their meeting. So know how you're going to answer that question along with common ones like mistakes, strengths, weaknesses. I think another way in which video interviewing is not any different than in-person interviewing is the importance of asking your own questions. First, you're going to make a commitment to this company just like they would make a commitment to you if you were brought on board. So having a good understanding of what questions you need answered in order to consider the role is important. But it also demonstrates to the interviewer that you are thoughtful, that you've put time and effort into thinking about this position and the company. And that really goes a long way with interviewers. Lastly, just like you would in an in-person interview, make sure you send a thank you note to your interviewer at the end. This can be in an email. You can take the extra step and do a handwritten note, but I would say probably less than 20% of the candidates that I interview actually send me a thank you note. So it's definitely a way to set yourself apart from a lot of the competition that you have out there. And it doesn't take very much time. There are differences in an in-person meeting and a video. So while you'll do all the same preparation, you will treat it just as formally as you were if you were going to go into the office. You need to be aware of some things you have to think about that you wouldn't necessarily think about if you were going to them. The first is I highly recommend that you do not have a video interview on your phone. I have a lot of candidates try to do this, and there are a couple of problems with it. First, on your phone, the image is very narrow. And it doesn't really give the interviewer as much understanding of your body language or communication style. It's also, and more problematic, really tempting to hold your phone during a video interview, which means you're jostling around in the picture. And if you get a phone call in the middle of your job interview, it will pause the video on your phone. And so then you have to clear the call, come back and talk to the interviewer, restart your video, and it causes a disruption in the conversation. So I highly recommend when you have a video interview to do that on a computer. Most laptops have video cameras installed. If yours doesn't, or you're working on a desktop computer, it is very affordable to buy a high quality webcam. Amazon will deliver them directly to your door. You can get some really great ones for under $30, and they're easy to install. So I think that's definitely worth the investment in your future to make sure you've got the right hardware for a video interview. And I know it's tempting to do it on your phone. It's so easy. It goes with you everywhere. You don't have to worry about where you are when that video interview is going to be set up. But you're going to demonstrate so much more professionalism if you take the time to utilize the computer. The second thing that's going to be important in a video interview is to familiarize yourself with whatever platform they're using. There are a ton of commonly used ones like Zoom and Skype and Google Hangouts, but there are a ton of companies that have their own proprietary software or a piece of niche software that you may not already be familiar with. So find out what the platform is going to be, and if at all possible, do a test. Ideally, that would be with a friend, family member, somebody where they can download the software on their end, you'll have the software on your end, and you can make sure you're comfortable with how to get into a meeting, how to get your video going, how to mute and unmute yourself if necessary. Make sure you're familiar with that software. And it also allows you to download it and get it on your computer so you don't have any delays the day of trying to frantically download something on your computer to get that app to work. The third kind of difference that is really important in a video interview is you're inviting them into your space instead of going into their space. So thinking about the background that you have in a video is really important. I've seen candidates with dirty laundry strewn about their room in a video, and that doesn't give me a really good sense of their professionalism and definitely not their attention to detail. So I'm actually in a backyard shed that I've converted into a home office. I have young children in the house and they are chaotic, and I don't want them to interrupt me when I'm on a call. So I've tried to make this as homey as possible. I've got this print behind me. Other than this cabinet next to me, you probably can't tell that I'm essentially in a garage. You can adjust a space however you want. You can sit at a dining room table. If you just have a blank wall behind you, that's perfectly fine. It's fine to have some artwork behind you, even personal pictures, provided that they still give you a sense of professionalism. You know, you don't want your bikini pictures or the pictures where you're all having lots of cocktails necessarily behind you in a job interview. So really think about what the images behind you are going to say to an interviewer. And that does include potential political images or things that somebody on the other end may have a difference of opinion with you and may take offense to. The second piece to thinking about inviting them into your space and how they're going to perceive you is lighting. So right now I am facing a window, and I took the liberty of taking a picture earlier of what it looks like if I have the window behind me. So you'll notice my face is in shadow, my hair looks crazy, and there's a ton of glare coming from that window. It's really distracting for an interviewer. Whereas if I just turn my computer and my body so that all of the natural light is facing me, it looks much more professional. The interviewer can see my facial expressions, and it feels more like a conversation that would actually take place in person. This is also true if you're not having natural light and using artificial light. If you've got a lamp behind you, it's going to have that glare. It's going to cast you in shadow. So when you're testing the platform with your friend or family member, ask them how the lighting looks. Try to test it around the same time that you would have the interview, because clearly light shifts. So if the interview is at 5 o'clock at night, it may be too dark for you to have a lot of natural light. You need to have a lamp on the other side of the camera illuminating your face. Or if it's first thing in the morning and you've got a window behind you, maybe you need to make sure that you're closing the curtains or drawing the blinds so that you're eliminating that glare. But a friend would be able to help you identify that. The fourth difference with video interviewing is eye contact, and this is really hard. For most of the time I've been talking to you, I've been looking into the camera. That's the way you understand eye contact the most. But if I look at myself, which would be the interviewer, if I were doing an interview, you can see that my eyes kind of drop down and I'm no longer looking directly at you. It's kind of a delicate balance because if you just stare into the camera, it can get a little awkward sometimes. And most interviewers are sensitive to the fact that if you're looking at them, they understand why. They're probably doing the same thing to you. So maybe finding a way to flip back and forth. When I'm interviewing candidates, I look at them when they are speaking, and then I look at the camera when I am speaking. When they're speaking, I want to see what their facial expressions are. I want to be able to connect with the body language that they're giving me. But when I'm speaking, I don't necessarily need to see what they are doing. I will sometimes sneak glances because I also want to make sure that they're still with me, that they're engaged, that I haven't lost them. That part of human communication that's back and forth is still really important. And being able to read nonverbals, you want to, again, kind of do a little bit back and forth. Test that again with a friend. So much of video interviewing is going to be testing what works for you and what doesn't. And so a lot of modeling with friends is going to be important. And lastly, the fifth kind of difference in a video interview is how you're going to dress. You still need to dress as appropriately as it would be if you were in person. So sometimes that does mean a suit and tie. Sometimes it's more casual and going to be business casual. The only difference for a video interview is sometimes patterned shirts can be really distracting in an interview. It depends on the quality of the connection and the cameras, but if you've got a really busy pattern on your top, it can get really distracting. That pattern shifts. It can kind of take over the screen sometimes. So again, hold that shirt up to your friend on the other end of the camera and ask them how it videos. Other than that, if you just are familiar with video interviewing, if you've practiced with friends so you're comfortable utilizing eye contact, looking at the background behind you, you are going to have a phenomenal interview as long as you can be comfortable and be yourself. It's the single most important piece of a successful interview is being who you are, enjoying a conversation with another human being, and looking to see whether or not it's the right fit. If you're yourself and they don't like you, then you wouldn't have been happy at that company anyway. I hope some of these are helpful. Be sure to look on the Center for Growing Talent's website for additional resources. They have a phenomenal resource book that talks about resume writing, preparing for job interviews, job hunting. There's a ton of resources available for you. I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to talking to you all again in the future. Bye.